Hearts are open. Father, they're open as best we can in this moment. Would you allow us to receive deeply the word that you speak to us? Bless us now as we wait in your presence. In the wonderful name of Jesus. And all of God's people said amen. Amen. Would you just clap your hands and give him praise? Hallelujah. Bless your name, Jesus. The story of the Magi in Matthew chapter 2 marks a major shift. A major shift in Matthew's narrative of the story. All until now, Matthew has been presenting Jesus as the Jews' long-awaited Messiah, a king of a kingdom they had been waiting for a very long time. He goes to great lengths in Matthew chapter 1 to establish Jesus, his lineage as being the seed of Abraham and the rightful heir to the throne of David forever. Goes to great lengths to do that in chapter 1, and then suddenly in chapter 2 there is this shift. This shift. Until now, everything has been to establish that Jesus is the rightful Jewish Messiah. And here he comes to chapter 2, and all of a sudden, there is this great shift, this unexpected scene of Gentiles from Persia, no less, receiving a revelation of Christ. Now, so we don't think it's strange because we've looked at the Christmas story so much and so often, and on the Christmas cards and the little programs that we don't think that this is strange at all. But this is a major shift because everything until now has been about the promised Messiah of the Jews, and all of a sudden, Gentiles from Persia, not just Gentiles from Persia, they are watchers of the heavens. They are members of a priestly class of the ancient Medes and the Persians. They are astrologists, we would call them. When they see a star that they had not seen before, they deduce by use of their astronomy and their astrology and their history, and even reading some sacred text, they deduce that this star is for a new king born to the Jews. Quickly begin to assemble this caravan to go and pay homage to the new king. Now, in our rhymes and our songs and our Christmas cards, there are three of them, but we don't know that there are three, just that there are three gifts mentioned. But they amassed this great caravan of wise men, of Medes and Persians, to go and worship the newborn king. Contrary to the way that we depict it, the wise men, the Medes, the Persians, the astrologists, the Magi, they are called, do not arrive to worship Christ while he is laying in a manger. In fact, by the time that they arrive to worship him, he is somewhere between 9 months old and 2 years old. Probably living with Big Mama Nim, Joseph's folk. In commemorating the coming of the Magi, some of our more formal Christian traditions call this Three Kings Sunday or Epiphany Sunday, to mark the first appearance of Christ to the Gentiles. Star suddenly appears in heaven. The Magi suddenly appear in Jerusalem. And these Gentiles receive the unexpected epiphany of the Jewish Messiah. An epiphany is a sudden appearance or manifestation of something divine. It is the perception of the nature and the meaning of something. It's when you grasp a new reality. It is a revealing scene or a moment, kind of like in a book or a really good movie where there is this sudden revelation, and all of a sudden everything that hasn't made sense until now, who disappeared and where they went, and did they really die? Did they leave the island? All of a sudden, everything that hasn't made sense until now, all of a sudden, epiphany, it makes sense. Epiphany is a revealing moment. It is when something is uncovered that has previously been unknown. Epiphany is the moment when the light bulb comes on and you get it. You just get it. It's the moment when you suddenly understand something and you see something that you haven't understood or seen before. Epiphanies mark significant shifts, not so much in the way things are, but in the way we are now able to see them. And for the Magi, an epiphany meant that something shifted in the heavens that now demands a shift in the earth. That something happened in heaven. They see the star. Epiphany, the star tells them that not only has something changed in heaven that wasn't there before, but now it is an indication that something significant is happening in the earth. And so they pack their stuff and begin to move towards what they see. Because epiphanies, when you see something, there is a shift required. Shift is to move, or cause to move from one place to another, to change positions or postures, to shift. It is to turn and go in a different direction. Shift is to change not only direction, but change your emphasis or change your focus. Are y'all still with me? It is a change. A shift is a change in how we see things and a change in how we do things. Because when you get it, you ought to do something with what you got. Now, my Angelo said that do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better. We've already seen that Henry Blackaby says that when God invites you to join him in what he is doing, it causes a crisis of belief that requires faith and action. And it requires major adjustments to your life. God shows you something that you haven't seen before and invites you into something you haven't experienced before. It requires faith, action, and major adjustments to your life. You're probably recognizing that we're in such a crisis of belief moment right now. We are in a defining moment, not only in our world, but in our nation and in our communities, in our church, and in our very individual lives. We are at a defining moment. We are at a pivotal point in time. We are at a juncture that will shape. Anybody know what I'm talking about? That will shape not only who we are, but who we are to become. There are moments. There are moments that are not ordinary moments. There are moments that are not to be brushed off lightly. There are moments when the things that you see and understand and the decisions that you make, the shifts that you either make or are unwilling to make, define you forever. They are defining moments. Defining moments that will forever shape who we become, who we are. Becoming. You ever had an epiphany years later and you thought, if only I had known then what I know now. If only I had the wisdom when I had the money. If only I knew then what I know now, I would have shifted. I would have done some things different. If I'd only known then what I've come to know now through experience, I would have done some stuff different. Epiphany. Shift. Epiphany requires shift. So this morning, this afternoon, before we leave the Christmas story one more time, I want to and cross over into another year. I want to look with you at some epiphanies from Matthew chapter 2, some revelation, some light bulb moments from Matthew chapter 2, and the shifts that they demand of me and you. Can we do that? Look at verse 1 and 2. I won't read these texts again. Maybe Paul will put them there, but look at verses 1 and 2. What the revelation, the epiphany. Are y'all still with me? Number one, the first epiphany that requires a shift from us is the epiphany that this moment is bigger than you and me. This moment is bigger than you and me. This moment that we have come to, this precipice that we stand on, this emergence into a new reality, into a new day, into a new season is bigger than me and you. This kingdom moment, this season is far more than just about a select group. To Matthew's readers, this would be a surprising revelation that the long-awaited king and the long-awaited kingdom wasn't just about them. That people, Persians, no doubt, Persians from Babylon, no doubt that the people who did, remember that the Persians had conquered them in their history. The Persians and the Jews got some history and it ain't good. And so when God makes his first revelation to the Gentiles of the Christ and says to them that this moment is bigger than just the Jews, and he does it through the Persians, this is a big deal. This moment, the people who didn't look like them, who weren't raised like them, were included too. People who weren't taught like them, people who they were taught were outsiders, are included. That outsiders are becoming insiders. Listen, there are people who don't look like you, who don't look like your family, people who weren't raised in church, but God is including them too. You hear me? They weren't raised in Sunday school. They weren't raised in BTU or YPWW. They weren't raised in any of that, but God is including them too. And a shift is required. When we realize that this moment, when we get the epiphany that this moment is bigger than us, that God is including people that we didn't invite to the party, that God is including people that we didn't expect, we must shift. Say shift. Shift is required because we must expand our perspective beyond the little town of Bethlehem. Because God is doing something bigger than the little town of Bethlehem. And this moment is bigger than can be contained within our traditions and our comfort zone. If you are looking for something comfortable, stop looking. This moment, First Epiphany tells us that this moment is too big for small thinking. We have to shift. We have to shift because there are friends and relatives and acquaintances and neighbors and co-workers and strangers who are far from Christ, and they must be brought near. We must shift our thinking beyond the little town, us four and no more, in the little town of Bethlehem, just waiting to love Jesus all by ourselves when a whole world is going to hell that Jesus died for. Not just a whole world that we don't know, a whole world in our house that don't know Jesus Christ. And every morning they get up and worship, and every morning they say their Jewish prayers, and every morning they say their prayers that expect the long-awaited Messiah. And then when the Messiah is finally announced that he is coming, they discover that it ain't just for them. This must be an epiphany that you and I must perceive. You and I must see that church cannot be just about us. Worship cannot be just about songs we like, and it cannot be just about the things we enjoy. It must be intentionally. We must shift our thinking, shift our perspective so that we can build the kingdom of God. Shift. 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 Why do you have a car that seats 5 and it's just you? Shift. Shift. Because this moment is bigger than you and me. This moment is about souls that you'll never meet. This moment is about old people and young people and children that you've never met before. This moment is about a whole kingdom that Christ died for. Let me hurry on. First epiphany is that this moment is bigger than you and me, and we must shift our thinking, expand our thinking. It cannot just be about, I came to church, I sang a song, I tolerated the preacher, and I went home. It must become about Gentiles. It must become about those who are far from Christ that you can reach. It must become about those who are far from Christ that you have left behind. It must become about those who are far from Christ that you drive by. It must become about those who are far from Christ who are still where you left them when you were far from Christ. Secondly, look at verse number 2. Verse number 2, I don't know time for all this today. Look at verse number 2. Verse number 2 tells us that you can step into a moment. I don't know if I can get anything else. Let me at least get this one in. It tells us that the epiphany of verse 2 is that you can step into a moment that wasn't made for you. You can step into a moment that wasn't made for you. This epiphany announces that there is an end to the days that some people or some class of people have exclusive rights to the moments of God. These men are way ahead of their time. Way ahead of their time. God isn't even speaking to Gentiles yet. You get this? Jesus didn't even bring the Gentiles in until the latter half of his ministry. Do you see this? These men are way ahead of their time. God wasn't including Gentiles yet, but they had an epiphany and shifted. They saw something and they seized upon it, even though it wasn't made for them. They seized the moment because nobody told them it wasn't for them. You know, history, listen, you all, history is filled with people who did impossible things simply because they didn't know it was impossible. If you can see it, do you hear me? If you can see it, you can seize it. A door in heaven is open and they walk through it, even though it wasn't open for them. People in Bethlehem prayed for this moment a long time. They've been praying for this moment their whole life. And now that the moment is here, they don't see it. You know, you ever think about that? That the fact that there was this bright star that they saw from Persia hanging over Bethlehem, but the people in Bethlehem, the people who it was made for, didn't see it, but the people for whom it was not made saw it. Listen, tell us about it. You can seize a moment that wasn't made for you. Listen, you can get in on a blessing that wasn't built for you if you can shift. Listen, just because other folk have been in the little town of Bethlehem long before you got here, don't mean they got exclusive rights to this moment. If you will perceive it, you can pursue it. If you can see it and you're willing to shift, you can step through and take possession. Do you hear me? Because it comes not by sitting or having sat, but by faith. If you can have faith for it, if you can see it and perceive the moment and you are willing to shift to have it, you can have a moment that wasn't built for you. That's why you're looking at me straight, because that's what the whole of the New Testament, most of the New Testament is about, other than Romans chapter 10, when there is this shift. Romans is all about faith. Romans is all about faith and grace, except for chapter 10, where there is this shift when God says, let me go back and get the Jews again. Well, what happened? What happened? He came unto his own, and his own received him not. Therefore, he says, I'm going to set them aside a while. And I'm going to work with the Gentiles. But when I finish with the Gentiles, I'm coming back. You understand that we are in this moment. We are in this moment because somebody else missed it. If you can perceive it, you can pursue it. If you can see the open door and you are willing to make a shift, you can step through it. Oh, Jesus, I got to hurry on. I got to hurry. Can I move on? Can I move on? The third epiphany in verse number 3, the third epiphany of this text in verse number 3 tells us, reminds us that God, listen, God is in charge of this moment. Do you hear me? God is in charge of this moment. Herod is a productive king. He has accomplished a whole lot for the Jews. Verse 3 tells us he ain't about to let nobody take what he built. He could have been known as the king who helped usher in the Jewish Messiah. Instead, he is known as the man responsible for killing thousands of souls while he tried to hold on to power. Can I tell you that major moves of God have been killed or hindered by people who were so possessive and so territorial that they wouldn't make room for a move of God? Churches have been destroyed because people refuse to give up perceived power and make room for what God was doing. Listen, don't you imagine for a moment that just because you have a seat, that you own the seat. God is in charge of this moment. And don't let your seat at the table become a throne. God is in charge of the moment. That means that God can use whoever he wants to use, when he wants to use them, however he wants to use them. And he don't have to ask your opinion. God is in charge. God is in charge of the moment. And Herod recognizes that God is infringing. God is infringing on his expectation. God is infringing on what he thinks he is entitled to. God is in charge of this moment. Ask Herod what happens to people who don't recognize that God is in charge of this moment. I do not recommend fighting against God. Your arms are way too short to box with God. Can I move on? Can I move on? I got a lot to cover. Look at verses 4 through 6. Verse 4 through 6. I won't read it later. Look at verse 4 through 6. Verse 4 through 6 is this epiphany, Alicia. It is this epiphany, and it says, you can miss your moment. You know, we like to say that what God has for me is for me. That what God has for me is mine, and can't nobody else have it. The reality is that you can miss your moment. The reality is that you can have all the information, all the talent, all the intellect for the moment and still miss it. I was working, I used to catch the metro train at Calumet, and I'd catch the train every morning. I'd stand on the platform every morning. I'd watch the same people run. Every morning, I'd watch the same people pull up in their car as the train was pulling in and jump out running with their coffee. Every morning, I watched the same people run, and most mornings, I saw the same people miss. How can you keep missing the same train? They collect information, the Jews here, but they don't do anything with it. Herod calls them together and says, tell me where the Messiah is supposed to be born. The surprise is not that he called them. The surprise is that they actually know and didn't do anything with it. They have all this stuff. How do they know? Anybody listen to me this morning? How do they know all this stuff and do nothing with it? For that matter, how do we know all this stuff and do so little with it? Do you know that knowing and doing are not the same? Huh? Church people think just because they know something that it means the same as doing it. Herod asked them, listen, look at the verse 4. It says, Herod asked them about their moment. You see? About their moment. The moment they've been waiting for, the moment they've been praying for, the moment they've been looking for, the moment they knew all the scriptures to match. He asked them about their moment, and they don't follow up to look for him themselves. They just give it away. They just give it away. They just tell him. And that's the end of it. You can be chosen for the moment and still miss it. Because you can be so attached to your past. You can be so attached to how things are. You can be so attached to the way things used to be or the way you think things ought to be that you miss the future when it comes. Seizing your moment is it's really about, y'all got some time for me? It's really about seizing your moment. It's really about being in the right place at the right time. They are in the right place. They just in the wrong time. God is in the now. They are in the not yet. God is in the now. I want to do something now. God is in the moving right now. God is in the star is right now. God is in the Messiah is right now. They still stuck in not yet. Moment can be missed. Writer of Hebrews tells us, not because we don't have the information, not because we don't have the promise, but the moment can be missed because we failed to mix it with faith. Moment can be missed because we lack the faith and the will to act on what we heard. Tell somebody, don't miss your moment. Don't miss your moment. Don't miss your moment. Look at verse 9 and 10. I got to hurry on. Look at verse 9 and 10. You must keep your eyes on God in this moment. You know, this has been a personal epiphany for me. Has been that I don't need to have precise directions. I don't need to know the end from the beginning. It doesn't have to be crystal clear. I just need to follow what he's revealing when he reveals it. I don't have to have all the answers. I don't have to know where it's going to end up. I don't have to know the outcome. I don't have to know what he's going to do next week or next month. I just got to know what he told me to do right now. If you keep your eyes on him and follow him, you'll get to where he's taking you. And the closer you get, the clearer you'll see. Say it again, the closer you get, clearer you'll see. Can I keep going? There may be another epiphany in these verses verses 9 to 10. There may be another here. Keener's Bible background commentary on the New Testament suggests that Matthew chapter 2 and verse 9. Listen to me closely. Listen to me closely. May simply imply that the star appeared to be moving because the Magi were moving. Let that sink a minute. That the star appeared to be moving because the Magi were moving. Sometimes I drive from downtown at night, or drive from somewhere at night as the sun is setting, or I see the moon in the sky, and the moon always looks like it's right in front of me. And I turn the corner and look like it's still there. And all the way from the north side to home, when I get to my house, it looks like the moon that I saw in Schaumburg is the moon that's standing over my house. And so this commentator suggests that it may simply imply that because the Magi were moving, it appeared that the star was moving. Now, I'm not going to argue that. Now, I remember a story where the text suggests that the sun stood still. That the text suggests that the sun stood still when in reality it is the earth that evolves around the sun, and the sun didn't stand still, but the earth in reality stood still. So I'm not going to really argue the point. What I really want to suggest to you is that there may be an epiphany here. That it's okay to see things different. I'm learning. I just up here by myself. I just talk to me all by myself. I am learning to appreciate and even celebrate that I am seeing some things differently. Not because everything that I saw before was wrong. You feel it? Not because everything I saw before was wrong, but because now I'm seeing from a different place. It ain't that what I saw when I saw it was the best I could see, because that's where I was. It is not that God changed. I am seeing God differently, not because God changed, but because I'm closer. I'm seeing the star different, not because the star changed, but I'm closer to it. How I saw some things was just because of where I was. And truth be told, even though I didn't, is anybody listening to me? Even though I didn't see clearly back then, I saw enough to get me to where I am now. So I can't throw out everything I saw back then, because the way I saw back then was enough to get me to where I see now. I'm just talking to myself up here. How I see things, some things has changed, not because God changed. He's still trying to get me to Bethlehem. He's been trying to get me to Bethlehem all along, not because God changed, but because I'm seeing from a different place. And that's all right. Somebody said that's all right. It's all right to change your view. It's all right. The worst thing you could do is say, I can't change the way I think because this is the way I've always thought. They said that the 7 last words of a dying church is, we've never done it this way before. It's all right to see different and not throw out the way you saw before. Because the way you saw before was in part a product of where you are. And now you're in a different place. And you ought to see different. Well, so said the prophet, I can see clearly now. The rain is gone. See, the way I see some things has changed. Not because God changed or some Herod influenced me, but I got closer. I wish I had time for that. Drop down to verse number 11. I wish I had time to stay there a while, but I can't. I got to move on. Look at verse number 11. Are you still with me? You tracking with me? You tracking with me? Here's the next thing. The next epiphany is in verse number 11. Look at verse number 11. Do you see it? Y'all see it in verse number 11? Here's the next epiphany. Listen, you already have what you need for the moment. That's the epiphany. You already have what you need for this moment. When the moment arrives, they've traveled all this distance. When the moment arrives, they don't have to try to figure out what to do. They don't have to try to figure out what to do. They don't have to run out to the store to find something. They don't have to do like me and pull over to the Walgreens on the way to the party. Try to find a gift card for somebody to steal the numbers off of. They don't do none of that. When they get to where they going, you hear me? Look at somebody and tell them, listen, you already have what you need for this moment. You already got it. What is needed for the moment, gee, they already have. You don't need to worry that you have nothing to offer. You don't need to worry that somebody else has better gifts. You don't need to worry that somebody else has something more than you. You already have what you need for this moment. You already have what you're supposed to give. You just need to open up your treasures and pour it out. It's not that you don't have gifts. It's that they've been locked up from your long journey. They've been locked up from it. It ain't that you don't have to give. It ain't that you don't have to give in worship. It ain't that you don't have to give in service. It's just they've been locked up because you've been on a long journey. You've been on a long journey with rough terrain and dark nights and dusty roads where you had to hide so nobody would steal your stuff. You had it locked up and buried and wrapped up tight because of what you've been through, that you've been afraid that somebody would take what is yours and take who you are, that you wrapped it up so tight. I've come to tell you today that you already have what you need. Just unwrap it. Just unwrap it. Listen, just because you got baggage doesn't mean you have nothing to offer him. We all got baggage. We all been on journeys. We all got stuff in our bed. All us got junk in the trunk. Truth is, your very gifting may be in your baggage. Truth is, what you've been through, the road you've been on, may be the source of what you have to give. Some of you have been through some rough terrain, some rough times. But that journey's over now. And your moment is here. If you shift, you open up. Stop hiding what you packed away. Do y'all hear me? Y'all hear me? Y'all hear me? Y'all hear me? 30-something years ago, I packed some stuff away in the baggage for a long trip. Been on a journey a long time. Packed some stuff away in the baggage. Stop, pack some stuff away that I wouldn't say I would never open up this gift again. Pack it away. But it's time to shift. Shift. Open up and stop hiding what you packed away because you think it's just baggage. I got to move on from that. Look at verse number 12. Look at verse number 12. I'm almost done. Look at verse number 12. Are you still with me? Are y'all still here? Look at verse number 12. Verse number 12. This is Epiphany. Brother Calvin took me a long time to get here. This Epiphany in verse number 12. Is that some people don't want the same moment you want. I thought everybody wanted the same thing I wanted. But see, sometimes, listen, this is the story. This is the story of the text that sometimes while you're trying, can anybody feel me here? Sometimes while you're trying to find your way to where you're going, you get connected to people who sound like they do, but don't really want what you want. You're trying to find your way. And you might have to shift so you can protect what you see. The angel wakes him up not wakes him up. The angel speaks to them. God speaks to them in a dream and said, "Don't you go back to Herod." Yeah, there's a verse. There's a little verse there. I don't have it in my notes, but you can find it there. I think it may be verse 11, somewhere around there. There's a little verse that says that the wise men, the magi, it says it talks about them listening to Herod, and it says when they heard Herod, that's a whole different word than heard. They didn't hear Herod, they heard Herod. Sometimes what people say ain't the same. Smiling faces show no traces of the evil that lurks within. Good God, smiling. And you gotta come to the reality. You gotta come to the epiphany so you don't keep beating yourself up and judging yourself and counting yourself out. You have got to eventually come to the understanding that everybody don't want what you want. And you can't keep trying to make people see what you see. I'm just up here talking to myself. You can't keep trying to make people see what they don't want to see. Because if people have already decided how they see you, there is nothing you're going to do to make them see you like you see you. It may just be time to go home another way. Listen, the Lord told him in a dream, said, get up and you go home. Don't you go back to Herod. Why? Because you can't tell everybody everything. They shouldn't have never went to Herod in the first place, but they was trying to do the right thing. But listen, you can't tell everybody everything. That's some stuff on my journey I wish I hadn't told nobody. Because I told the wrong people and they talked me out of faith. I told the wrong people, they told me you can't do that. I told the wrong people, they told me that's impossible. And I was doing it before they told me it was impossible. Sometimes you just need to be particular about who you tell. Now, aside from all the providence of God and all that, and God doing what he was going to do, and God meant it for good when the enemy meant it for evil, Joseph got himself in trouble. He should have never told them boys nothing. They didn't mean him no good from Jump Street. Listen, you cannot need people's approval and acceptance so much that you are willing to sell out what God is trying to get you to. And that's hard. Especially if they kind of helped you get where you are. They kind of owe Herod, don't they? He told them where to look. I mean, he stole the information, but he told them where to look. Can't keep trying to get people to support what you want, because only God can change a heart. You hear me? I've learned that there are people who would rather see the moment killed than to give up power and territory. Shift. It might just be time to go a different direction. And you got to be okay with that. Tell somebody you got to be okay with that. You got to be okay with that. I was in a line in a store some weeks ago. I'm gonna tell you the name of the store, but I was in line in a store, and the line was 20 deep. Just 20 deep. There's the people that walked out. Now some of y'all are gonna say, "Well, that ain't nothing." To me, that's something. I want to get in and get out. It was 20 deep. And I'm thinking, one line? Really? If I get, as the older I get, some of y'all with me, the older I get, I gotta check in with Sylvia sometime and say, baby, did I say that out loud? But sometimes I say stuff I don't mean to say out loud, but I'm standing there, I'm thinking, one line, really? Everybody who had been there before me for a while seemed okay with it, including the cashier. She seemed to be promoting it by going slower and slower. And I'm thinking to myself, ain't there something? I think I'm thinking to myself, I might be saying it out loud. At my age, I don't know. But I'm thinking, ain't there some kind of protocol for this? Ain't there some kind of policy or procedure for this? I mean, 20 deep. Aren't they supposed to do something? Ain't there a plan for moments like this? And I think I'm thinking, but people are looking at me, so I may not be just thinking. And just as I'm about to give up, throw my stuff anywhere and leave, I hear a prophetic word from the speakers, a rhema word from the intercom, a voice of clarity says, I see three. And I say, yes, yes, yes. That's what I'm looking for. That's the word that I've been looking for. Something's supposed to happen when a line is 3 deep. You're supposed to open a line. Now I'm looking, I'm watching. Because now I heard the word. Now I heard the word of prophecy. And I'm looking and I'm watching for a light. I'm watching for a word. I'm looking for something because I know now there's an epiphany. Something's supposed to happen. Damn, I saw it. An epiphany out of the corner of my eye. I saw it. A lady walking across the floor with a money tray, a cashier, opening another line. I'm trying to be nice, y'all. Because I figure a bunch of people been there before me. Some of them were in that line when I got in the store. And I figure they ought to get the chance to go first. But ain't nobody moving. They just standing there. That could have been me. But it looked like slow motion. Looked like they weren't moving. Maybe they're just comfortable now. Maybe they've been in the line so long they're comfortable. Maybe they just like that cashier. Maybe it's fear of the unknown. Because really you don't know when you leave one line whether the next cashier is going to be worse. When you can move and try to get ahead and find yourself getting further behind. Maybe they don't want to risk their place in line. Sometimes what you know feels safer than what you don't know, even if what you know is stuck. I don't know why, but they didn't move. So I had to let go of what seemed fair. And shift. I had to let go. I had to let go of the fear of what people would think about me. Once they saw me shift. So some people think just because you've been in the line, you're supposed to stay in the line. You know, people tell me all the time, Pastor, you ain't never done it like that before. Why you doing it different now? I had to let go. And in a singular, decisive moment of clarity, it wasn't that I was better or thought I was better than anybody in the line I was in. It wasn't that I thought I was more deserving than anybody else. I just made a shift. Saw an opening. Saw Epiphany. I saw a moment that wasn't even for me. It was for number 4 in the line. When number 4 missed it, it didn't shift. In a few moments, I'm walking out the door. Looking back at all the people who had been in the line when I got there, still stuck. I come to tell you, listen, whether you've been in the little town of Bethlehem all this time, or you're just getting here, the moment is now. Shift. Doesn't matter what your history is, doesn't matter how long your journey has been, doesn't matter where you come from, whether it's Persia or next door, doesn't matter where you come from, shift. When the moment is right, and you see it, when you see the open door, when you see the opportunity, when you see the